Today we're going to be minting our own coins. Stay tuned. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So a little while back, we made this episode here in which we tried to make our own little coin mint out of some bolts and stuff we had around. And one, you guys seem to really like that episode. And two, we had a lot of fun making that one. So we decided to try a couple of different ways of doing the same thing, but this time a little bit more involved. So without much further ado, let's jump right into it and level up this skill. Okay, so I'm pretty sure she'll kill me with how long this took, but when Maddie was like, we should try making another coin mint, and this time we can use some of the other things we have, immediately my brain went to, I want to carve the mint. For a while there, I've wanted to make my own metal engravers so I could do it by hand and then actually engrave the shape onto some metal. So yeah, that's the first technique we're going to start with here. We're going to go over a few different techniques, but this is number one. That being said, it's kind of dead easy. To make the gravers for actually engraving in metal, all you really need is the proper kind of metal to do it with. Really though, any tool steel will do the trick. So old files you might have, if you have old jigsaw blades or something, that'll work. I had what I think is a brilliant idea and decided to use these drill bits here. Not only because it is made out of the appropriate kind of steel, as a matter of fact, this is a high-speed tool steel, so it's good with higher heats and whatever. But also, they're drill bits. And you're gonna see why this is awesome in just a little bit. For starters though, we need to actually get our shape of the little carver into the drill bit. Now I'm pretty sure you could probably, if you have a grinding wheel or whatever, just kind of go to town on it and make it whatever you want. I don't have one of those though, so in order to make this easier for myself, I first heated up the back end of those drill bits until they were glowing red. By doing that and then letting them slowly cool back down, I'm annealing that metal. So we're taking it from a hardened state and we're bringing it back to just kind of a soft steel that I can work with. By doing this, I'm able to just clamp these things steady and use a file to grind them into shape. I started by kind of squaring it off a little bit first. Basically, I want to use one of those corners of the square to be where my sharpened point comes to. So with that in mind, I put it back in the vise and just kind of filed away the excess until I really sharpened out one of those points. After tooling with that for a little bit, I'll see myself out, I apologize. But after that, I did find that I could just use my belt sander and it did a great job on this. Ultimately, I made 3 of them, 2 that you just saw, and this one here that has more of a rounded shape to it that I'm foreseeing to be able to move more material. Once I was happy with their overall shape, I went back and heated them up again until they were red, and then immediately doused them into water. By heating them up this much and then cooling them off fast, I'm hardening that steel again. But there's a problem with that, because at this point, the steel's actually too hard. It's to the point that it would be brittle. And we don't want that, so we want to go ahead and temper it. I didn't shoot this to do it. All I did was stick it in my oven at, I think it was 400 degrees for 2 hours. Basically, you just want the metal to look like this. It's a wheat color, they call it. That softens the metal up again just enough so that it isn't gonna shatter on you when you go to use it. With all 3 of these bad boys ready to go, I busted out this sharpening stone here and went ahead and finished these things off, making those edges nice and clean, and all of my points as sharp as I could get them. Okay, so now we actually have the sharp tool that we can use to carve out the metal, but there's a problem, in that it's still a bit, right? I'm gonna be holding on to this little twisty thing and trying to hit it, it isn't good. So we need to make a handle for it. And that's where the genius of making these a drill bit come in place. So check this out. For the handle material, I'm just using this oak dowel here that I cut into roughly 2.5-inch blocks. Or, cylinders, chunks of wood. You understand what I mean. And then roughly center-ish of these, I used a smaller drill bit to make a pilot hole going right down the middle. Now, I simply take my little drill bit tool here, and I put it in the drill. As it is, a drill bit. It works. This I then drill into said block of wood. Once I've got it down as far as I want it to go, I just brought it over to my sander and got that bad boy a-spinning as I sanded it. This not only rounds off the edges how I want them, but it actually kind of straightens the whole thing out because it isn't perfectly straight in there. As it goes, it's wobbling a little bit, and the part that's closest, or turned, I guess, is hitting the sander a little bit harder than everything else. Basically, it just helps out my sloppy drilling job, that's all. And bam! Look at how slick that is! It's a perfect little handle. It's made for it. Of course, it is made for it. It's literally made for it. But still, And then after I put some boiled linseed oil on it, oh my God, they're perfect. Look at them. They're perfect little hand tools. Not only that, but because they are like drilled into here, like they hold on really well. These are super securely inside. Fun story, what made me think this would work, when I was a kid, I had like my first toolbox set. And in it was like a real drill bit that you like could drill in by hand. Anyways, long story short, I got it stuck in a piece of wood and for years, I couldn't get it out of that piece of wood. So yeah, even like the mistakes that shape us, like give us good ideas. Okay, so now that I have the carvers, I need the thing to carve, the metal like pieces that our mint are actually gonna be made out of. For this, I bought this 1-inch round stock of 304 stainless steel. I'll link to the Amazon listing for that in the thing below. It's just what I read on forums would make a good steel for this type of project. I just sort of eyeballed a 3-inch chunk of this and cut it off with my hacksaw. And because I'm making 2 different mints, I did this 4 times, one for the top and one for the bottom on both of them. Now to get these suckers nice and flat, I just put them in my clamp here and lowered it down until it was just a little bit above the lip of my clamp. And then I used my file to bring it down until it was even with that clamp. The clamp there kind of acting as a stop and gives me a nice even line to work with. Then I simply just ran it over some sandpaper until it was smooth. So since each one of these little bastards has 2 sides I can work with, I decided to sacrifice one side to test if these engravers even work. And I was super pleasantly surprised. It didn't take very much effort at all to start carving away little lines, getting used to how these things actually work. I even drew this janky little skull and then tried to follow it along as best as I could. And honestly, it came out pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't hang this on my fridge or anything, but like, I think that looks kind of cool. You could definitely tell it's a skull. And for my first time carving steel by hand, I'm not upset about it. It's pretty neat. Now the metal I'm actually going to be making these coins out of is this 1-inch round stock of brass. And FYI, I chose 1 inch just because it's roughly the size of a quarter, and that was like the easiest for my brain to be like, yeah, that's a good enough size. I like that. Oh, and just for fun, I decided to test these gravers on the brass. And with this softer metal, you don't even need a hammer. You can just kind of push your way through it, which is fantastic. Like if you want to just kind of hand carve a challenge coin or something, like these will 100% do the trick. I love it. I love that we were able to make these out of drill bits. I think that's so fun. This did lead me to a bit of a dilemma though, because this nifty little round stock, I need to cut slices out of it to make coins though. And I wasn't quite sure how I was gonna do this. So my first crack at it was actually to drill a 1-inch hole in this piece of plywood right here. As you can see, it's just big enough to fit the metal through nice and snug. So the thought here is to clamp the metal bar in like so, and then position the board on top of it, clamping that down into place. Then I simply lower the bar down until roughly the thickness that I would want a coin is sticking up. Then I just take my hacksaw and use that plywood as a guide to help me cut a nice straight line at the right width. And I'm not gonna lie, that worked really well, like surprisingly well. It's this coin right here, which is one of the ones I end up using for the minting process. It turned out nice and straight, and after I kind of sanded it down nice and smooth, it looked good. So like, you could do it that way. Though then I did realize that they do make metal bandsaw blades, so then I just went ahead and got one of those. And yeah, this was a whole lot easier. Though I think that bandsaw blade I have is only meant for like plates o metal, so I got maybe 5 of these done and then it wouldn't cut anymore. So yeah, one way will last longer but need way more manpower, and the other way is easier, but you just chew through the blades real fast. I'm sure they make other blades that are better for that. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, again, after sanding these nice and smooth, check that out. We have our coins to work with, which, that is satisfying. That's really cool. Okay, so obviously the way our mint has to work is you've got the one metal die that goes in the bottom, the coin goes between it, and the other die goes on top. In order to keep that together, we need something all of those can fit inside of. Now I have this big block of oak right here that I think will work, but it's just a little bit too thin. So to remedy that, I just kind of glued up another piece of wood to stick on top of it, and then screwed it into place to add up that extra bulk. Then it was off to my drill press to drill that 1-inch hole all the way through it. And I know what you're thinking, if you had a drill press and could have done it straight, why'd you put these in crooked at first? I'm gonna be honest with you, drill press, buried underneath some stuff, I was very lazy. This was easier. But now we have this block with a hole that's just big enough to fit all of our stock through it. Which is perfect. At this point, we basically have a working mint, though now we need to add on the actual, like, the image that we want to imprint onto our coin. Now, the images I decided to use were these two here that we mocked up, with the thought of maybe if these come out good enough, they'll be like the gold coins for our characters at Conquest, which is Fox and Crow. That said, before I go like carving by hand, I kind of wanted to, one, test out a different way, but also like set a benchmark for how good they could look. So for this, I'm gonna use the laser that today's sponsor OhmTech sent us a while back. It is the MP696980 MOPA fiber laser, and we did a video on it specifically right here. And this has quickly become one of my favorite toys. I love this thing so much. And once I centered up the stock here, it only took a few minutes to actually get the image that I wanted put onto it. Though this did teach me something interesting. My first pass with it, I actually made it go really slow at a really high power, thinking that that would do a better job removing material. It actually did the opposite. If you look at these two here, this one where the material looks kind of raised up, that was the one I went really slow at a high power. This other one here where the material is actually removed and it looks really clean, that was done at a much lower power, but a bunch of more passes. It appears that like the material that it kind of removed, it then remelted on the surface because it looked like, if you've ever welded before, the little welding bead that comes up, that's what it looked like on top of the surface. It was really cool, but not at all what I was looking for. But yeah, once I had this sucker dialed in, it made super short work of making exactly what I wanted. And because y'all were concerned last time, I made sure to have a fume hood kind of remover here, just to keep everything safe. I'm gonna leave links for this laser in the description below. But oh man, if you're in the market, I highly recommend this one. This is by far my favorite tool in the shop now. I love it so much. And like, look at how stupidly clean these two things are. They're nice and deep. They're super crisp. Ugh, I love how they look. I hope they work well, because man, that's really cool. I also figured while we were at it with the laser, it'd be cool to do like a coin just with the laser again, so we can see kind of the difference between doing it that way and doing it by hand and minting it. And again, it made super short work of this, and look at how beautiful that is. I can see why Maddie's kind of obsessed with the making of coins. That is infinitely satisfying how good that comes out. It's so cool. I'm sorry, that's really neat. Okay, so now we have like the laser made die portion of this. Let's get to making it by hand next. Now for this, you could just kind of freehand it if you're feeling brave, or draw it on there. I think last time I kind of stamped it into place and then I cut it away. But I mean, I have the tool, so I'm gonna use it. Understand you don't need to use the tool for this, but I threw it in the laser and had it super lightly just mark the shape on the material. This didn't cut into it at all. It was just enough to like darken it a little bit so I can see the outline of the shape that I was looking for. With that good to go, I locked this bad boy into my clamp and then just got to carving. And though I am by no means skilled at this yet, this was actually way easier than I thought it was gonna be. My carvers cut right into this thing, it left the lines that I wanted, and at the end of the day, that looked like a fox. I think that looked good. And then again, to show you more options, if you don't want to use a laser and you don't feel like making hand carving tools and carving by hand, which I'd understand, you can always just bust out a Dremel. If you don't have a Dremel, it is one of like the tools I recommend every shop has. It's super versatile. And yeah, it made really short work of making this thing look like a crow in my book. So there we have it, my two hand-carved dies. Again, I love how both these came out. The cleanness of the OhmTech laser is just fantastic. And then like being able to carve metal by hand, I don't know, there's just something about it. Really cool. Now I did want to do one more thing. Maddie sent me a great idea where if we actually keyed these pieces, we can make sure that they're always in the right orientation, and then we can actually strike it more than once because they won't move around. And this was really easy to do. All I did was use a punch to mark right where I wanted it to go, and then I brought it over to the drill press to drill a shallow hole right where I made my mark. This hole's just big enough to fit this metal dowel that I had laying around. Using my Dremel, I just kind of cut off a little plug from my dowel, stuck it into that hole, and then used my hammer to tap it into place. I did this to all four of them and then just kind of cut and rounded them over so that they were roughly the same size. Then I took my jigsaw to cut the key out of the wood exactly where I'd need it. With that in place, these now only fit in one orientation and will match each other perfectly. All right, so here's the moment of truth. I put in the lower one first, then I drop in my coin, and then settle the other half of the die on top of that. These I just brought outside and sat down onto this metal plate here and busted out my 10-pound sledgehammer. If you remember in that last video, I was like, you know what would make this easier? A bigger hammer. So I got a bigger hammer, guys. And after just a little bit of aiming, shazam! Look at how cool that is. That was the OhmTech laser engraved one, and it came out really good. The Crow side came out with just a little bit of like a few spots on it or something. But I actually think that's because when I put it in, some of like the wood fibers got in there as well, and it became part of it. But all in all, that looks great. My other die set I hit twice. The first one kind of a glancing blow, and the second one completely destroyed my whole little block setup there. I think the takeaway from that, one, if you can, make that out of metal somehow. I need to find something with the right hole in it. But yeah, if you can make the thing that holds it out of metal, and then make it so that it actually attaches to something. You saw every time I hit it would like fly off somewhere. I need to make some way to like attach it to my anvil or something. That said, check this out. This is the one that I did like by hand, and though it's nowhere near as perfect as the other one, that isn't bad. That is clearly a fox and a crow, and if I had a bit more of a controlled setup, that would totally work. That's fine. So there we have it, 3 more examples of ways we can make our own kind of coinment / engrave coins. 4 technically, if you count the fact that you could totally just engrave coins with your little engravers here. That would be painstaking. It'd be one at a time. It'd be really nice if I can get these in a thing that won't like self-destruct when I hit them. I guess they don't self-destruct. I destroy them, let's be honest. But proof of concept as we hone this thing in. I love playing with these. These are so much fun. I think next time I'd like to try making like another mold and put melted metal into it. Oh, we're gonna see. I bet there's some cool things we can do with that. Anyways, I hope you liked this episode. If you did, why don't you give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. Also, just a heads up, we are going to Conquest this year, the largest LARP in the world, and we're bringing a bunch of you with us. As such, we want to make the camp as good as possible, so we've started a GoFundMe that's going to go just towards making the camp awesome. So if you'd like to help support that at all, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. Again, all the proceeds are going to go towards making the camp awesome and making sure everybody has everything they need, which will also go towards a nicer camp for you if you want to go next time. Not only that, but we're going to take all the names of people who have given and we're going to like engrave it onto a thing that will be posted in the camp. So you'll be like the roots of the camp. And if you're tooling around in the description, make sure you check out the link to our Discord. That is where like the community lives and shares projects and talks to each other. Like look at all these amazing projects that people have shared on the channel. This community is super creative, incredibly helpful with each other, friendly, and generally just fun to be with. So yeah, if you're in the market of finding like-minded individuals who want to craft and kind of hang out, definitely check that one out. All right, that's it from me. Thank you all for watching, and again, special thank you to OhmTech for sponsoring this video. Hope you all have a nice week, and until next time, keep leveling up, you. You've made it, ouch, shit, damn, ooh, that hurts. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that. It's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. And a huge shout out to our newest high tier Patreon member, Grifter. And an extra special shout out to our Grand Master tier Patreon members, Yuri Santro, Dragon Designs, Froggy, and Andrew Smith. Again, it means everything to us that you help us in this way and you make it so that we can like buy materials and stuff. This stuff gets really expensive sometimes, so we really appreciate the help. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can check out one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that helps out a lot too. Now, if you excuse me, I must go carve my name into random bits of metal everywhere across the world. So cool.